All right, hello and welcome to the 12 News Connected Desk. I'm Keith Grant. We've got Sean Logging here with us. Of course, we're nearing the end of the Kansas, what's happening at the Statehouse, and when we've still got the budget to wrap up. But quite a few things happened last week. This is something you've been covering for a while, the Sunflower Summer Program. I know that the funding for it in general was kind of in limbo earlier in the session.
Yeah, so when it passed out the House, basically it only had about $1 million worth of funding. There's been a big push by both the attractions and by families to increase that funding level just to keep this program going, because basically attractions say if it's only funded $1 million, it's basically not enough.
How much did they want?
So the governor's budget, the governor's position was about $5 million, basically to keep it funded at the levels we needed it for based on this last summer. And so what we are seeing right now, though, is about $3 million. This is the Senate position. Last week, the Senate Ways and Means basically met all week, going through the budget, going through all of these line items. And one of the things they did was they did increase the funding for the Sunflower Summer Program, so it would be about $3 million total for this upcoming year. And so it provided at least a foundation for it. The thing is, though, too, that conversation in this committee was basically talking about we maybe have to look at like not funding this in the future. So even though it's going to be potentially funded here this summer, the future does remain certainly uncertain. So right now, this is simply the Senate's position. So they'll go negotiate with the House and they'll kind of iron out things. So this is where the Senate says we want to go.
Okay, next up. Now, is this also included? Was this part of last week as well?
Yeah,
the whole thing.
There was a lot of discussion on the budget last week in the Senate.
A dental school coming to Kansas.
Yep. So this is about $750,000 just for a study for a dental school between Wichita State and Fort Hays State University. There was also some other funding increases or funding allocated for higher education in Kansas as well, for Emporia, KU, and all the other schools. So they're putting some money here toward higher ed in the Senate version.
It's interesting that they would think right now, because I know that for a while the budget, it's slim pickings right now, right?
Yeah.
Public safety and law enforcement. So there's a few things pertaining to both KBI and KHP. They're getting a little bit of money to improve facilities? Yeah,
KBI has been pushing for a new facility in Topeka. That's been one of their main pushes this legislative session. So in the Senate version, there are about $100 million there to issue bonds to construct a new KBI facility there in Topeka. That'd be their HQ.
Headquarters.
And then there's also about $55 million devoted to relocating the headquarters for KHP in Salina. So some additional funding there. We'll see how this all pans out once it gets worked out between the senators.
So about $155 million, both for KHP in Salina and KBI, the headquarters in Topeka. And also last week there was another investigative committee formed, correct? Or is this...
It's the same members that were part of the initial one with Hoheisel and Carr, but they're basically looking at a new complaint that's been filed here. This was by Representative Leah Howell. She is from Wichita here, a Republican, filed against Ford Carr, a Democrat here from Wichita. Basically, this complaint deals with allegations against Carr for behavior on the House floor in 2023, and then also it also presented as evidence the bar fight that we had here earlier this year.
Exactly, in January. So Carr now in the middle of a few different things. We had the bar fight earlier this session, the deal between Hoheisel and him, that was last month, and now we've got Leah Howell bringing up another instance.
And of course that the committee basically decided to take no action on the Hoheisel Carr thing, so we have this new complaint filed against Carr. Initially Carr was the one that made the complaint that started this investigative committee.
Now, will this committee continue review after session? Can they do that?
So we'll see.
Okay.
It's a select committee, so basically it doesn't have to mean they're in session for a committee to meet. Like there are committees that, of course, meet in their interim as well. So, but we're still kind of waiting for what their schedule will be this week. And these committees this committee moves pretty quickly. So we'll probably see some action here if they take any.
So that's something that we could look forward to this week. Also this week, Drop Dead Week.
Yeah, so basically we're coming up to the end. Basically the Drop Dead deadline is Friday. So basically most bills that need to pass the second chamber. So if it's a House bill and it passed the House already, it now needs to pass through the Senate in order to stay alive here this session. And so this applies to certain bills, not all bills, but most bills will need to kind of comply with this. And so what we're seeing right now is basically there's a few days of committee meetings here early this week, but the rest of the day will be on the floor for the House and Senate here as they work toward this deadline here on Friday. And we could also start seeing conference committees. This is where both lawmakers from the House and Senate come together in, I guess, just like 3 members from each chamber to kind of hash out differences between a bill. So a bill that might have passed the House, it passed out the Senate, but the Senate made some changes, so they have to kind of compromise on just kind of the final language of that bill. That's where the conference committee
will do. So this is where we're ironing out everything to make sure that it hopefully gets passed before session ends. We're on that path. Another thing, this is something that I think is interesting. We've been talking about it all session, property taxes.
So today the Senate is taking a look at 2 things that passed out of the House already. So one is a constitutional amendment. This would basically do things when it comes to limiting valuations when it comes to homes, properties, things like that. So this passed out of the House a few weeks back. Basically, it would determine people's valuation based on the lesser of the fair market value or the average fair market value. So basically, the legislature would set like a time frame of, okay, this is the 3, 4, 5 year range where you can determine the average. So this basically limit just how much people see in a valuation increases. This is a state constitutional amendment, so there's a bit of a higher bar for it to pass both chambers, and then it has to be approved by voters. So we'll see how far this goes. The Senate already passed out their own version of a constitutional amendment similar to this that would have capped valuation increases to 3%. The House wanted a bit more flexibility in that language, not just a set amount, because there is concern that you can really impact newer construction or divert property tax burdens to others if you're really just capping it at that 3%.
So this would just be the lesser of 2 values, essentially. Okay, perfect.
And then there's also the bill that the House passed a few weeks back that would basically allow for more protests when it comes to budgets and how much people are paying in their property tax bills.
So lawmakers are really kind of hammering down on trying to lower property taxes for everyone.
That's a big focus.
It is, and it's a burden that we've heard a lot as well, just from viewers.
So that committee is meeting today, hearing those 2 bills, and so we'll see what happens next with those.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, Sean. That's all we've got right now.